Jason, you said you have a lot to say about blackface.
I had a lot to say. We were talking about discussing this slightly as an episode. I don't know what originally, if there was like a specific thing that you were thinking about when you suggested it or not. Was there something in the news maybe?
It's definitely been in the news
It
recently. I
has.
mean,
Yeah.
and as Matt mentioned before we started recording, it's not just blackface. Of course, that's the most common thing that
Oh yeah, no,
gets
I have.
a lot of.
Yeah, I was
But
going to
but
talk
but
about
it's just
all of it.
generally actors playing out of type. There's obviously nowadays there's even a straight man would be weird for him to play a gay man or a transgender person, things
Yeah,
like that. And Broadway there was, like Hedwig and the Angry Inch, like for the longest time
yeah,
was played by many people who were not transgender. But then recently, what's his face from Dexter, Michael C. Hall, right? That's his
Yeah.
name.
I, uh, I,
Yes.
I did not know that he had done that. That's interesting.
Yeah, he did like Hedwig on Broadway because he's got a good singing voice and stuff. I went to see it actually. It's the only Broadway show I've ever seen, and he got some, there's saying, it's 2019, Hedwig should be an actual transgender actor, as opposed to just an actor playing a transgender. So yes, blackface goes beyond just
Of course. Yeah.
yeah.
Obviously, it's nearly impossible for us to go into this subject without branching into some uncomfortable politics type stuff. But I just to be clear, I mean, I've talked a lot about this in Facebook rants and stuff like that. But I feel very strongly that um, when it comes to any character, doesn't matter what it is, to me, the only thing that should matter really is whether or not the actor can pull off the role and make it work. That's literally it. I do think there's some nuance to it, and there's some definite thought that should be put into things. And I think that representation is important, but when it comes down to it, that's how I feel. And I don't want to go on a huge long rant. I want this to be more of a conversation, but just to point this out, I wanted to kind of talk about a whole bunch of different aspects of this because, like you said, it's more than just about actors and actresses playing a certain race and stuff. It goes into all sorts of different things, but it's weird to me because you've got this like historically, obviously, the actual term blackface goes back to those old blackface movies, and those were horrible. I mean, I've never actually sat down and watched one, but I've seen clips of them, and I know that the whole purpose behind blackface was the whole exaggerated features. It was meant to mock, and stuff like that. That was everything behind it. So it's like, obviously that's terrible, you know, but it's frustrating to me that we live in an age where people are conflating a person, putting makeup on or something like that to, to appear slightly more tanned or a slightly different skin tone or something like that to play, a different ethnic group, but not even another race or something like that, as blackface. Because if a person's playing a character straight, if they're playing an authentic representation of what they're trying to do, then that's not meant to be disrespectful, you know? So it shouldn't be called blackface, you know? I'll just give an example. Like, I didn't see either of these, but, like Orson Welles or Laurence Olivier both played Othello. I kind of doubt, I've never seen them, but kind of doubt that they were actually, in the stereotypical air quotes blackface attire when they did those movies.
Yeah,
I think Orson Welles kind of was
Was
a
he?
little bit.
See, I didn't see him. I'm just saying, like, here's a better example. Like the fact that people actually get mad about Robert Downey Jr. doing his character in Tropic Thunder. like, not only if a person actually did that in real life, they're not doing it to belittle and mock that race. They're doing it to tell a story. Now, I mean, obviously, it does beg the question, why? You know, when you've got plenty of other actors that you could choose from, why do that? Yes, that's a worthy conversation to have, but don't conflate it with, don't call it blackface. I mean, that's not the same thing. Now, and then the worst part is that in that movie, they're specifically doing this as a joke to point out how stupid it would be for an actor to do this. Like, so that shouldn't be seen as disrespectful in any way. The movie's filled with scenes that are just like, you know, at Robert Downey Jr.'s expense. These jokes where it's like, you are an idiot. Why would you do this? You know?
Yeah. Yeah,
Jason,
definitely that specific reason, like that specific movie is all about making fun of it. So definitely.
yeah, Jason, though, I think you said that you have never sat down and watched any of the old movies with.
Yeah, I never saw The Jazz Singer or, you know.
Or Birth of a Nation. Or
no, you know what? I didn't see it.
I have.
I saw Birth of a Nation on a plane.
I have
on a laptop.
I have.
No, on the Arcos, on my remember the portable.
Oh yes,
thing?
I remember that. No, when I said that, Gil, what I meant was, for clarification, did you see it on your own personal device, or was it being shown on a big screen on a plane?
Yeah, no, it wasn't shown, but like it was funny. Like it was one of the only movies I saw on a plane on that Arcos device. But yeah.
Okay. I have an 8mm projector and a full print of Birth of a Nation on 8mm.
I mean, is it a good movie? I've been told it's like really racist.
No, it's racist as all shit. It's also iconic and important for cinema history and all that shit.
I got you. Okay.
It is a very good movie. It's actually kind of funny because when you watch and this doesn't happen every time, but when you watch like a propaganda racist movie, you're not really convinced by what's going on, right? But I was watching this movie, it's like, oh wow, this is like pretty convincing. Like if I was a white person in like the early 19th century, I could find this compelling. Like I can find, especially if I was a white person and all this stuff. I'm obviously a brown immigrant, but you know, like still, it's you kind of see like how people get swooped up by propaganda. So yeah, that specific movie is horrible, but it's brilliantly made for the time. It's pretty captivating stuff as far as the technique and again, and just how convincing it is. That just shows that it was good storytelling if it was actually like convincing, or at least for people that are on the fence to be racist or not. So it's a problematic movie.
Just throwing this out there, it as another example of this being taken to the ridiculous degree. Like I just wanted to make this perfectly clear. I'm with anybody who's mad about these kind of things, like I don't know, like what we were saying before, something like Orson Welles being cast as Othello, you know, something like that. It's kind of ridiculous, especially in this day and age. But like, I don't think it should happen, you know. But at the same time, you get these people getting mad, like going back and watching that movie Be Kind, Rewind, and they're mad that Jack Black is in that movie, you know, in air quotes, blackface for the scene, because him and Mos Def are recreating movies. He's not actually playing a black guy in the movie, you know. He's playing a white guy who's playing a black guy. You know, I know I sound like Tropic Thunder now, you know. You know what I'm saying? Like, people are like, the whole movie is a love letter to movies. And it's about these two dopey guys working at a video rental store recreating movies. If you got a movie where you need him to be a black character and you only have a cast of two people, literally your entire crew and cast is two people, what are you going to do? You know, does anyone actually watch that movie and go, Jack Black is a racist?
Apparently, you know, yeah, apparently a lot of people do.
That's what I'm saying. Yes, apparently people are upset about it, and apparently people are dumb. Like,
Blackface just reminded me that movie existed.
it's a pretty good movie. You should watch it.
I
And I mean you. I mean the world should watch it. It's
yeah,
pretty
I
good.
know.
I don't want to get too bogged down on all these specifics or anything, but I did make a list of other things other than blackface, like that I've heard people complaining about. Obviously, there's the famous yellow face, like
Yeah.
Breakfast at Tiffany's. It's a good
Well,
example. The John Wayne Genghis Khan. The I think Yul
that,
Brynner did The King and I.
That's
A
true.
more
Yeah, he wasn't
recent
Asian, huh?
I guess not. No, I don't know. I was gonna say
still had
this goes perfectly with what I was
August.
trying to talk about earlier, though. You know, like I said, to me, all that matters is can you pull it off. You know, people got horribly angry years after the movies were made, and particularly after it was mentioned in a stand-up comedy routine by Aziz Ansari. But you know, Short Circuit 1 and 2, they have Fisher Stevens doing, you know, what I guess we call Indian face, maybe. I don't know what you'd really call that exactly, but he's playing an Indian from India. I don't know. I mean, like, I never knew he wasn't, you know, of that ethnic group until years later when people complained about it. So clearly he must have pulled it off to some level. Now I can understand people being upset that there aren't enough roles for, you know, for people, and that this one starring role got taken by a white guy. That's fine, but that's a different issue. That's an issue of we need more roles for X ethnic group. That doesn't mean that you need to be mad about this one thing. And like, you know, going back to this whole, you know, like the yellow face thing, everyone got so mad about Emma Stone in that Aloha movie because she's supposed to be playing a half Japanese, half Hawaiian or something like that. And it's like, yeah, I get it. I mean, and guess what? The movie did terrible, largely because of that bad press. She was probably not the right casting for that. Not because she's not the right ethnic group, because she can't pull it off. You know, she's white. She looks white. She doesn't look like she's half Hawaiian, you know?
Right.
So
I guess there was also wasn't it like Scarlett Johansson in Ghost of a Shell or something?
yeah, and well, that's another good one to bring up. So that would be an example of like whitewashing. That's the term that they use for that. You know,
Yeah.
where, like, for instance, in like the Marvel movie Doctor Strange, they, in the comic books, Doctor Strange goes to a place called Comatas, and he learns all these mystical arts from someone called the Immortal or something like that. And it's in the comics, it was this old ancient Asian man. And Marvel was trying to be progressive, you know. They cast Tilda Swinton in the role, so it's like they gave the role to a woman. But everyone got mad that it wasn't an Asian.
She's not Asian.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so that would be whitewashing, because she's not playing an Asian person, so therefore it wouldn't be yellowface. But they took the role that was in the story for an Asian and they made it white. Now, people, just because you brought it up, people said that they were upset about Scarlett Johansson playing the Major in Ghost in the Shell. Everyone who got mad about that is just showing their ignorance, and showing that they didn't watch the movie. Both of those things, probably not one or the other, but both. Because if you're a fan of Ghost in the Shell, it's not very explicit in the animated movie, but the idea is that she's so good at what, you know, she does, having this cyborg body, and she's like really proficient with it and everything like that, because she was one of the very first people to, you know, she had a disease as a young child that made it so she had to, you know, get a cybernetic body, put her brain into a cybernetic body kind of thing, or a digital brain or something like that. I don't know, it's complicated. But the point being that in the early stages of this stuff, they didn't have very racial or ethnic specific bodies. They just kind of had like a very racially ambiguous bodies for these people who needed these cybernetic bodies. And yes, her name is Motoko Kusanagi, so she's obviously, supposed to be Japanese, but it's not like her body was supposed to be like extremely Japanese. The creator of the damn comic book that started the whole thing, like when he heard that Scarlett Johansson was cast, he said that's the perfect casting. So if you're not going to take his word for it, like, you know what I'm saying? And then they went a step further just to try and please everyone in the live action movie. If anyone actually bothered to watch it, they would show that she doesn't have that name in the movie. She's Major something, some Anglo name. And then it's a big reveal, spoiler alert, that halfway through she finds out that, because she doesn't have a lot of memories from before she was in that body, and she finds out that she was a Japanese woman named Motoko, and that's her past and such. So it makes perfect sense,
Oh, so she has like a white American,
yes,
Western
yeah.
body.
It's like all the people who complained about Scarlett Johansson in Ghost of the Shell, definitely didn't see the movie, and well, let me rephrase that. Maybe they didn't like.
I think they more. I think it was more of a whitewashing in that case. Yeah.
Well,
or at least what some people
like,
said.
Even in the original thing, it's like you can watch the original cartoon or the animated movie and see how they draw the characters that are supposed to be, that are not cyborgs. They're the human looking characters for the most part, and you can see the ones that the way they're drawing their eyes, the way they're drawing their facial features, and so on and so forth. And then you can see the way they draw Bato and the Major, and it's like there aren't a lot of specific things that are very ethnic specific, or racially specific about them. It's like the guy who made the damn thing said she's the perfect person for this role. I mean, she's supposed to look like that. It's fine,
It's funny. I just, as you were talking about this and thinking about anime, I was thinking about the Alita thing.
Yeah.
And I just realized, like I didn't think about it in the Japanese context. The big eyes, like it's the contrast to Japanese eyes would be way more than it would. Like I was looking at it as like, oh wow, her eyes are bigger than a human should be. Like, what's the reason for that? I guess it's like just certain technical reasons and just to differentiate her from a human too. But the fact that I wonder if there's like some sort of Japanese fantasy to like have like they have like a sex appeal to like bigger eyes, like women with bigger eyes.
Japanese anime stereotypically draws
do have bigger eyes, right?
They draw men and women with bigger eyes, but very specifically women. They the female characters, particularly the girls, they draw. Obviously, there's very different styles, all different kinds of styles in anime. If you look at like Ghost in the Shell, you'll see that they draw them much more realistic. There's plenty of other anime out there where they're going. You remember I showed you that Jinro movie?
Racist.
Yeah.
They're trying really hard to make it as down to earth and real as possible. But if you watch a lot of anime, there's plenty of them out there that have big eyes.
I was just thinking, one thing's for sure in terms of casting, it's amazing that Cliff Curtis hasn't hit the freaking jackpot now, because nobody knows what the fuck he is except he's not white.
Who is he again?
He was the psych officer on Sunshine. He was in he's been in everything. He's like the plug and play actor for every. He was in The Fountain, playing a Spaniard. He was in.
This guy.
Yeah, I mean that guy just hit the genetic jackpot for this day.
Yeah, he plays a lot of Mexicans too.
Yeah, like I mean the moment that we know that we've fallen off a cliff is when somebody points at Cliff Curtis in a role and says, no, he's not authentic enough. Like, because you have to literally like dig into his biology at this point to just say like, oh, no, No, he doesn't fit there. Uh, but I, the thing is, I do think that this whole conversation has to be put on a certain spectrum. We can all agree that we shouldn't be doing Birth of a Nation in that kind of blackface in this day and age.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we all agree. Okay. We're not going to get tarred and feathered yet. I mean, I had a friend, a peripheral friend, actually a pretty close friend for a while, who actually unfriended me, like blocked me, because I gave a positive review of A Quiet Place.
Oh, I remember this story.
Yeah. She clearly hadn't seen the movie because she kept saying that they had cast hearing actors in deaf roles, which is false. There was only one deaf character in the movie, and it was played by a deaf actress. All the other characters could hear, and they were played by hearing actors. But she kept doubling down, and tripling down, and quadrupling down, and quintupling down, and so on and so forth. And finally, she just decided that I was a horrible person for, just trying to point out, no, this movie actually cast the deaf role with a deaf actress, and that's the point where, like, the pendulum has swung so far from Birth of a Nation that it's breaking out of the clock. Where it doesn't make any damn sense anymore why we're going so far in this direction that actors can't be actors anymore.
Yeah.
Where actors can't pretend anymore.
Yeah.
It's bigotry now because Kenneth Branagh played Hamlet and he's not Danish.
Yeah.
No, there's definitely limits, like as far as convenience, because I mean, yes, Hollywood has done this for convenience in the past. Historically, whether it's like the yellow face or the Mexican face,
Brown
like
face.
Eli Wallach and Rod Steiger and the westerns, and again, I was saying like spaghetti westerns, like all the Italians played Mexicans because it was shot in Italy, but. And yes, if those movies were made now, you could probably find a recognizable Mexican actor to take a role. Although, I mean, not in all cases. So I think that there should be balance. I think there should be intent, like endeavor to find an actor. Definitely give an opportunity. But at the end of the day, if Rod Steiger or Eli Wallach were the best fit in spite of their actual race and they're still passable, I would give it to them. Similar thing with a recent thing that happened was with Zoe Saldana. Like she played Nina Simone in a biopic, and people got upset because she's not black. Like, she's not black enough. They actually added to her color. Like she added like complexion to her to make her darker, and they changed her nose because she has a smaller nose than Nina Simone or something. And they found that offensive. And the movie, I think, was never released, or at least like it hasn't been heard from because of that controversy. But she's a black actress. I think she's a mixed race, but she is a black looking actress, and she is famous, well known, would have brought a lot of attention to this movie with her celebrity, and also more attention to Nina Simone's music and history and everything. But it's all spoiled because of that. Like, we're getting so specific that I think we're losing the point of the movie. The movie is to expose people to these important black people, but that exposure never happens just because of like a technicality, because they couldn't find the perfectly complexion, like, black actor to fit that role, to be bankable and all that. And it's I understand the what people say, but at the same, it's got to be a case by case basis. It can't be.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of interesting. I don't know if either of you have watched any of Orange is the New Black.
Yeah, I watched a little bit.
I kind of checked out after a while, but I mean, there is kind of a monumental aspect of the show where there's a character in the woman's prison who's a trans woman, and there's another character in the show who's played by her real life twin brother, who's a cisgendered man, and they're both competent actors. And it's one of those things where like it's really great and interesting that they managed to find not only not only to have a character on the show who's trans and find an actor. I by the way, if anybody whose PC is listening to this, I'm using the actor word to describe broadly. By the way, a lot of actresses have been saying just call us actors for like 20 years. So I'm just using the word actor broadly. I'm not being transphobic or misgendering. Okay.
Yeah,
Anyway,
make sure to
to
clarify.
right to find an actor who can play that role of the trans woman in the prison who is actually trans is already a feat of finding somebody who is a part of less than 1% of the population, who also is part of that less than 1% of the population who wanted to be an actor, who is also part of that 1% of the population who is actually a competent actor, and is also a competent actor in that small percent of that 1% of the population who fit the role. And then by some miracle, she has a brother who isn't trans, who is also a competent actor. That is an infinitesimally small chance that you're ever going to get into a casting room. Like that is like once in a. I mean, it's once in a century. I mean, like you're never going to get that.
Yeah.
I love Tom Hanks, but Tom Hanks saying that he wouldn't do his role in Philadelphia now because he's not gay.
Stupid.
Or Eddie Redmayne, rolling back, his role in The Danish Girl because he's not trans or anything. The thing is, the more I think that there's going to be a tipping point where all of this push for authenticity. I'm doing air quotes that nobody can see. Authenticity that people are striving for in actors shouldn't play against their types. It's going to eventually come down to a reality that they're just not going to be bankrolling projects that deal with trans and gay people as much because there is so much danger in just making any wrong casting choice. There's just going to be the small Twitter mob that becomes irate. I mean, there was a movie. I mean, Scarlett Johansson was
I was just going to mention that
as a trans man a few years ago, and that movie got shut down because of the outrage because she's not really trans. How many trans people? She was playing a real life character, by the way. How many trans people fit that description? How many trans people? I mean, you're talking about like 1/2 of 1/10 of 1% of the population that even fit the description, and then you have to find somebody who's actually a talented actor.
Well, and there's another side to it, Matt.
Somebody who will actually bring in money.
Yeah, so you're there. There's the business side of it that and Gil obviously touched on this as well. But it's so ridiculous for people to be making such a stink about this stuff, because it just shows that they don't understand the Hollywood machine. Now, you can complain about the Hollywood machine, you can complain and say things need to change, but to make these arguments that these movies never should be made for these reasons just shows that you're not in touch with what's going on. Because that Scarlett Johansson movie, I don't know what it was called, what it was going to be called, I should say, because it never got made. But that's a perfect example. There's times where things like that Exodus Gods and Kings Ridley Scott movie came out, and he got all upset when people got mad about him for not casting Egyptians in the Egyptian role, well, particularly of Ramses or something like that. I think it was Joel Edgerton or something like that was who he cast. But he's like, he got mad and he just like publicly said, I can't make a whatever $1 million, however hundreds of millions of dollar blockbuster and put an unnamed Egyptian actor in this role. He's like, there isn't anyone we can cast that will, get butts in the seats. And if you think that that a studio is going to give you the kind of money you need to make a modern day CGI filled historical epic, especially one like that. I didn't see that movie. I heard it was terrible. But a movie with a bunch of like giant Braveheart style battles and stuff like that in them. I mean, come on, it's not going to get done. And perfect proof of that is that Scarlett Johansson movie. It's like that movie was getting made because they were able to get Scarlett Johansson interested in doing the part. Now, put yourself in the place of someone who's complaining about this, someone who's part of the trans movement and they're trying to like get more representation. What would have been better for that? What would have been better? Get this movie made and get all this, awareness out there, get it all in the environment and everything, get everyone talking about it and make a great movie. And now you've got that made and stuff, that's the better choice. Get the movie made, but instead they're so hung up on, is the actress or the actor, actually a trans person? That's ridiculous. You think the 13th Warrior ever would have gotten made? Not that that's a super successful movie or anything, but I'm just saying, back in the 90s, do you think the 13th Warrior would have been made if they weren't able to get Antonio Banderas to be the lead? Yes, he's not Middle Eastern. Okay. So yeah, that's by today's standard, that's a little off. But even back then, or especially back then, never would have gotten made.
I don't even think you have to go back that far. I mean, I still think that Mickey Rourke should have won the Oscar, but Sean Penn for the wrestler. But
of course, yeah.
But Sean,
would Milk have even been made if they didn't get Sean Penn?
Yeah, I mean, and that shows how stark the contrast. I said contract incorrectly. Contrast is over the last holy fuck 14 years. Like in 2008. I mean, Sean Penn was being celebrated for his bravery.
Yeah. And now they're tearing him down.
Right. Yeah. Being a straight man doing authentic, sex scenes with Diego Luna and, James Franco, who are both.
I forgot Diego Luna was in that.
Yeah. And by the way, every actor in the fucking movie is straight. Every actor, even Alison Pill, believe it or not, she's straight.
I don't remember who that is. I'll watch the movie again.
She played a lesbian, but
okay.
I'm sorry, Alison Pill, but okay. Yeah, all of the actors in the movie were straight. I mean, the only person heavily involved in the movie who was gay was Gus Van Sant.
Yeah.
I mean, but they were all playing. Obviously, except for Josh Brolin, the main cast was all was all playing gay while being straight. Nobody batted an eye because, I mean, Emile Hirsch, James Franco, like all those guys, they're all straight in real life. They were playing gay. nobody cared because it was a good fucking movie.
Yeah. And then the other aspect that I think is just worth mentioning, I was talking to a buddy of mine about this, and he brought up a really interesting point that I had not thought of at all. And that is the fact that with all casting in any movie, it obviously it varies from role to role because people are different. Everybody's different. But when you cast somebody, there's a certain amount of baggage that comes with the person you cast. If you cast an unknown, there's practically no baggage. But
Yeah.
baggage works in different ways. Like you mentioned Tom Hanks in Philadelphia. He's recently come out and said, I wish I hadn't done this, or I regret doing it, however he phrased it, because he's not gay. That movie never would have had the impact that it had in terms of, helping the whole acceptance of gay people if it had been an unknown gay actor. The fact that it was Tom Hanks, who was like one of the biggest and most lovable, yeah, one of the most like lovable actors, in the world at the time, and still to this day, that's a big deal. That's part of what was make that movie successful.
The bottom line is, it's just kind of embedded into the word actor. You are pretending to be something else. My last moment that I had on stage, because believe it or not, I used to act in theater, I was playing a woman. I'm not. Last I checked, I am a cisgendered straight man. But yeah, that was my last role on stage. I was playing a woman. Nobody thunk anything of it. In fact, it was a rather good time. And I mean, there were no women in the cast, even in college, who were saying, "Oh, Matt just took a role away from a deserving woman who should have been in that role, who's just a little bit more masculine built and everything." Like that didn't happen. They just decided to cast me in the role because I was supposed to be a Spartan kind of halfway butch woman.
What was this play?
It was Lysistrata.
Oh, okay.
Aristophanes.
I can see that if they couldn't find like a butchy, like a tall woman.
Yeah.
Or girl at the time.
That's like, it goes back to like, Matt, what you did on stage is like, it's like them having to go to Eli Wallach for The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly and Magnificent Seven.
Yeah. And I got to wear fishnet stockings.
What? Oh, you got to wear. Yeah.
It was a very weird of Lysistrata. But
funny about like Eli Wallach is that they he had to like do the cross sign because he was supposed to be Christian.
Oh yeah.
The movie, and the thing about, because he's Jewish, he didn't want to do an actual cross, so he would do like up, down, and then he would like wiggle left and right, like not like a complete cross. And he used it as like, well, my character is kind of like is like very scruffy as it is and weird, so it's okay for him to do a half-ass crossed, and also that way he doesn't betray his Jewishness. Speaking of Jews, Jim Caviezel, I actually looked it up as you talked because he's blue-eyed, but apparently for the movie they digitally changed his eyes to be brown. I did not know this. Just because Jesus wasn't blue-eyed. What?
Wow.
Yeah, I was surprised that you just found this out now.
Do we know that Jesus wasn't blue-eyed?
When I watched that movie, I didn't care about his eye color. I just like was amazed that they put a snuff film on in theaters. That was my main focus watching that movie, not the casting choice.
I still think it's a great movie. Shoot me.
Yeah, no, we should definitely we should do our double episode, 12 Angry Men and 12 Angry Men, the 12 Years a Slave.
And, that's an interesting
that was a
double
weird,
feature. I didn't think about that.
Yeah. Well, I've said that.
No, you did. You did. I just didn't, it
Passion of
didn't
the Christ
process
with
in my
black
head.
people.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I totally agree with what Gil was kind of hinting at earlier and talking about, touching on, I should say. Especially in this day and age where we've got more representation in our actors pools to draw from and everything. I think it's important that people are trying to make an effort to cast people, especially to cast people who look like the role, to cast people of the right ethnic group, the right racial group, and whatever. But at the end of the day, like I've been saying since the beginning, it's about being able to pull it off. I don't have any problem with Eli Wallach playing a Mexican. I don't have any problem with it's Rod Steiger, right? Was in Ducky Sucker, I think. Yeah. I mean, I don't have a problem with Ben Kingsley being in Schindler's List. It's fine. And it's a little telling that most of the people who are so upset about all of this, like, however they're going to call it, whitewashing or whatever, or blackface and all these various things that they're complaining about. You don't ever see any complaints from them about the stuff going the other direction. There's a huge list of characters in movies that were supposed to be either white or some other ethnic group that are now, or that they decided to cast black people for. I mean, they got like Michael Clark Duncan did a wonderful job in the Daredevil movie, even though the movie wasn't so great. Obviously Morgan Freeman in Shawshank Redemption is one of the greatest movies ever made.
Was it a white character?
Yeah, he's
in the
supposed
book?
to be Irish, but
Irish. Oh, because it's called Red.
Yeah, in the book he's Irish. There was this whole thing about Tarantino was saying that he was really nervous about doing Jackie Brown because he thought the author was going to be really mad at him for making her black. And he ended up being thrilled with it. He thought it was great. He didn't have any problem with it at all. I mean, the Mos Def in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy was awesome, but that was a role that is usually played by a white guy. Nick Fury in the all those Marvel movies, and half the supporting cast in Justice League. I'm kind of exaggerating. There's probably 3 characters or something like that. They decided to make black. Same thing with the Supergirl TV show, the Flash TV show, all these things. It's like, as long as you do a good job, I don't care. I don't care about what the race of the character is, but nobody complains about it when you are going one direction. They all complain about it when you decide to, make Tilda Swinton not Asian in Doctor Strange,
Just saying for the record, I'm the only Aryan in the conversation.
I'm half white.
Crap.
I'm definitely. I think I'm all brown. Although even the brownness, I'm completely like 100% North African. But one half of my family is whiter than the other.
Yeah, I'm Austrian, English, Welsh, and Scottish. So I'm amazed.
White as they come.
Yeah, I am very, very white. Yeah, I'm the only person who has rights in the United States.
Well, but I guess that's a good point about, for one thing, I think one thing that was said is like, that's very true, is that yes, Hollywood over the course of its history has represented a lot of different types of people and views, because there was some freedom to at least cast actors that can at least be attractive to an audience and all that. So yes, losing that would be stupid. It would be like against what people want to as far as representation. And pointing out the fact that I grew up in Israel, a brownish, kid to two native born Moroccans. I watch Hollywood movies and Hollywood TV, like, or like American TV, and I never had an issue with representation, or like, oh, I've not seen me on the screen. I never felt like that was the whole point of movies. The reason why we watch movies is to relate to other people,
Yeah.
whether they're black, yellow, white, if they're a
Man,
monkey, if they're a
woman,
robot,
child.
whatever that is, as long as it's got human characteristics, it's relatable, and you can relate it to your own life and experiences. It never bothered me. It was like, oh, I didn't like, oh my God, Gal Gadot is in the movies, finally an Israeli. I don't give a shit. Good for her, but it doesn't, like, I don't think Israelis need representation in the movies to feel good about themselves. That they can relate to anybody who shows up. We just, we had our episode about Lady Bird and Edge of 17. That's weird. Like three guys talking about two movies where it's like female leads. Obviously, that makes perfect sense, because who
Yeah.
cares if they're women, if they're female, they're human.
Yeah.
So that's what I never understood. Even though I understand the representation thing, I also don't, just because of my perspective and how I grew up. I get it. It's a good idea, but who are you that you have to see an Indian actor play a lead role in order to be inspired to be an actor yourself? Why can't you be the first one? Like, why can't you say like, oh, Brad Pitt is so awesome, I want to be like him. Oh wait, but I'm a brown Indian living in like wherever. So fucking what? Give it a shot. Maybe you'll succeed. Obviously, the chances are against you. Nobody's saying that they're not. But that's how people succeed in life, is that you don't have to like see someone that looks like you in order to want to succeed. You just look at anything that inspires you and you want to succeed.
So, Gil, you didn't stand up and cheer when Oded Fair was cast in The Mummy?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I
I'm just
remember that. Like,
joking. I love that
yeah,
guy. He's
I
a great
completely
actor.
forgot about that. Yeah, he's like, he's got like a very,
He
it's
was
funny.
also in Deuce Bigelow.
Yeah, no, I honestly, like, when they cast Gal Gadot, I was like, that's so weird. She's got the accent and stuff, and then they kind of rationalized it with Wonder Woman. It was like, I'm okay with it. That's fine. But then other movies, she's got like a Schwarzenegger thing going. She's always gonna have an accent, and it's
She
just
plays
weird.
as an act. She plays an Israeli in in the Fast and the Furious movies that she's in.
But yeah, that's good. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just like Van Damme and Schwarzenegger. You have to come up
Yeah.
with an excuse.
The only
But
other thing,
yeah.
oh, I was just going to say real quick, the only other thing I just wanted to mention, because this is parallel to this whole discussion of like of blackface and whitewashing and all these things like that that people complain about. The other factor that you will see people discussing along with this same issue is a term that I hate, but a term that gets tossed around a lot is in critical ways of movies, when they talk about, okay, well, maybe the movie didn't have blackface, maybe the movie didn't have whitewashing or something like that, but people will complain a lot about movies that have a what they will call the cliche of like the white savior or the black savior.
Mhm.
And like examples of that obviously would be like Lawrence of Arabia or something like that. Uh, one of the movies I really loved, I still do love, I think this might have been the very first time I actually read this term in a review, was for the Kevin Bacon movie, The Air Up There. And I mean, some people hate that movie. I really liked it, but I still do like it. But but
Uh,
it just drives me crazy because
yeah.
for the most part, movies like The Air Up There or uh, Lawrence of Arabia, I guess, is kind of an example of this. That movie, The Visitor, the one with Richard Jenkins and stuff like that. It's like these movies are basically the Last Samurai, the Tom Cruise movie. These are culture clash movies for the most part. You're taking one person of one culture and you're showing them exposed to another culture, and usually after struggles there's benefits on both sides from that. I mean, if you can't get behind a story like that, I don't know what you want. That's like the most anti-racist thing there is to have a movie about multiple cultures mixing and clashing at first, and then finding uh, simpatico kind of thing, and it drives me crazy that for the longest time there's been this whole like really negative view on this whole thing. They're like, oh, it's a white savior movie. It's a white savior movie. And then they make something like Legend of Bagger Vance and they complain about that being a black savior movie. And I'm like, well, what the hell do you want? I mean, like these are, in my humble opinion, movies that are portraying a positive exchange of culture. So I don't see what the big deal is.
Oh, I think that, fundamentally, okay, Gil, you really kind of knocked this point out of the park. Jason, I think you hit a triple, uh, uh, maybe a ground rule double with it.
Continue.
Yeah.
We're dealing with this in a post-empathy culture. We don't like empathy anymore. We don't like the idea of somebody trying. I mean, live your life on, dare yourself to live on social media for a day, and you will find a flood of people complaining about, you don't know my life. You don't know me. You can't understand me because you're not me. And not only that, they will fault you for trying to understand them. They will fault you for trying to reach out and walk a mile in their shoes. They think that that's bigotry. They think that that's demeaning them as individuals to actually say, okay, I don't get it, but I'm going to try to. I'm going to try to play devil's advocate. I'm going to try to restate what you're trying to tell me. I'm going to try to meet you halfway. I'm just going to try to see where you're coming from. That's viewed as a negative thing now by a lot of people. It's dangerous to empathize. Now, you can sympathize, but there's a reason why sympathy and empathy are two different words. Like, oh, you've gone through this, I've gone through this. Okay, so I can be that, shoulder to cry on. That's perfectly fine. Empathize is more, oh, okay, you've gone through this, I haven't gone through this, I'm going to try to understand.
Yeah.
We're pro sympathy, we're anti empathy. The thing is, acting is all empathy. Acting is entirely empathy.
Yeah,
I
trying
mean,
to walk in someone's shoes. Yeah,
right.
basically.
It is 100% empathy. So if we go into a post empathy culture, we are going into a post acting culture.
Which, for the record, just for clarification, you're saying falls cleanly into the bad things category.
Yes.
Yeah. Tough to make movies categories.
Yeah. I mean, it's just. I mean, I remember, acting exercises that I went through where, like you are supposed to, you're supposed to play the woman who's just been attacked, or you're the black guy in this situation or something like that, and you're supposed to embody that and try to sell it because you're trying to live you're trying to be something that you're not. That's exactly what acting is. I mean, I've played a rabbi on stage.
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah,
Jewish.
no, but I think the main concern, and we should really wrap this up,
Yeah.
but like, and this is a different subject altogether, is that oftentimes when people did a blackface, they also, the characterization was very stereotypical
Right.
too,
Especially back then.
which, stereotypes, I like to say that stereotypes exist because they're right. I mean, most people, like, like Hank Azaria doing a poo, he kind of sounds like the way most Indian, store cashiers sound like. It might be slightly exaggerated, but it's comedy. Is it a stereotype? Yes, but is it true for the most part? But obviously, like there's times, just like anything else, there's times where it goes too far, and it borderlines on just being distasteful and stuff. So yeah, it's all finding balance. It's all giving good people of that color or sexual makeup or whatever it is, giving them the opportunity, having an open casting call. But ultimately, if the best person for the role is not of that, and as long as it's not completely ridiculous, like a white person playing a black person or a black character, then yeah, I think it's okay to stretch it a bit. And maybe you find other ways to bring representation, maybe within the project or things like that, and then of course make sure that you're not like going for stereotypes all the way, all the time. And yeah,
Yeah.
it's tough. It's tough because stereotypes are easy and they're fun and they're especially funny. So what are you gonna do? It's just,
Yeah.
you're trying to be entertaining.
There's a I love that you brought this up because I'd completely forgotten about this aspect of it. There's a stand-up comedian named Akash Singh. I think I'm saying his name right. I could be saying it wrong, but he talks all about how he loved that Apu was voiced by Hank Azaria. He would bring it up all the time in jokes and just be serious. And he talks about how there's nothing, like racist about that character, because if you look at everybody on The Simpsons, I mean, he's one of the only minorities that is depicted really positively. He's like a successful business owner. He's a dedicated husband and father. And I mean, it's so ridiculous that people wanted that Hank Azaria and other people wanted to get him gone for that. It's like, I mean, if there's one thing that perfectly illustrates what I was talking about before, and that I think that what this whole conversation should come down to, can the person who's playing the role pull it off? In animation, if nothing else, pretty much anything should go. Like, I don't care what you are in real life. If you can pull off the voice acting for the role, more power to you. That's just my humble opinion. But
actually,
that's kind of how
sorry,
I
go
feel
ahead.
about all. But really, anyway, go on.
No, actually, that's kind of an interesting point that the voice of Cleveland has always been on Family Guy, has always been a white guy. Uh, up until like the last season, they recast him because they decided that Cleveland needed to be a black guy. But during the entire course of the Cleveland show, the voice of Lester Crinklesack, the redneck living across the street, was voiced by a black guy.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean,
For the record, Mike
Yeah,
Henry
no.
was the voice or the original voice actor for Cleveland.